At 30,000 feet, Flight 718 cruised smoothly above a blanket of clouds, carrying 404 passengers across the night sky. The cabin lights were dim. Some people slept. Some watched movies. Some prayed quietly, unaware they were minutes away from disaster. In the cockpit, the captain adjusted his headset. "Why are we drifting left?" he asked. The co-pilot frowned, eyes locked on the instruments. Autopilot correction lagging. That's strange. Then the plane jerked. Hard. Coffee flew. A child screamed. Overhead bins rattled like they might burst open. In the cockpit, a sharp warning chime cut through the air. "Rudder limit," the system announced. The captain grabbed the controls. "Rudder's not responding." The co-pilot pushed the pedals. Nothing. He pushed harder. Still nothing. "It's jammed," he said quietly. Another violent yaw sent the aircraft tilting sideways. The horizon on the windshield twisted unnaturally. "Kill the autopilot!" the captain shouted. The plane fought back, shaking like a wounded animal. In the cabin, panic arrived faster than understanding. Oxygen masks dropped without warning. The sudden hiss filled the air. A woman cried out for her husband. A toddler screamed as his mother struggled to secure the mask over his tiny face. "Please remain seated," a flight attendant shouted, gripping a seat for balance. But fear doesn't listen. Passengers clutched armrests as the aircraft leaned left again. Farther this time. Luggage slid inside overhead compartments. Someone shouted a prayer in Arabic. Someone else yelled, "We're going down!" In seat 18B, a small pair of hands gripped a seatbelt. Lina Ahmed, age 12. Her heart raced, but her eyes weren't wild with fear. They were focused, alert. She felt the plane's movement, not just the tilt, but the delay between correction and response. "That's not hydraulic failure," she whispered to herself. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. "When a plane yaws without roll input, think mechanical resistance first." Lina swallowed. Her dad was an aircraft engineer. Since she was 8, he'd let her sit beside him at the kitchen table while he studied schematics. He turned complex systems into bedtime stories. "The rudder is like the tail of a kite," he once said. "If it locks, the wind becomes your enemy." Another violent shake snapped Lina back to reality. Across the aisle, an elderly man clutched his chest. A teenager cried openly. The cabin lights flickered. The intercom crackled. "Ladies and gentlemen," the captain's strained voice said, "we are experiencing a technical issue. Please remain calm and follow crew instructions." Calm. The word felt like a lie. In the cockpit, sweat dripped down the co-pilot's temple. "Rudder position indicator stuck," he said. "Pedal input useless." The captain clenched his jaw. "If we force it, we could rip the—" "Vertical stabilizer," the co-pilot finished. Silence hung between them. Everyone in the cockpit knew the history. They knew what happened when rudders failed violently. They knew the word no pilot wanted to think about. Catastrophic. The plane yawed again, harder. Altitude dropped by 300 feet in seconds. "Mayday, mayday," the captain called into the radio. "Flight 718, experiencing rudder jam, uncontrolled yaw." Static answered back. The radio flickered, then went dead. The co-pilot stared at the panel. "We've lost primary comms." "Great," the captain muttered. 404 people and we're flying blind." Back in the cabin, flight attendant Sarah Collins forced herself forward, step by shaking step. "Sir, please sit back," she shouted. The elderly man in row 19 collapsed unconscious. Sarah knelt beside him, hands shaking as she checked his pulse. Alive but weak. Another violent lurch nearly threw her into the aisle. That's when she heard it, a small voice, calm, clear. "This pattern doesn't match hydraulic loss." Sarah turned. The girl in Seat 18B was leaning forward, eyes fixed toward the front of the aircraft. "What did you say?" Sarah asked. Lina looked up at her. "The rudder feels mechanically locked. If the pilots apply full opposite force, it could fail structurally." Sarah blinked. "Sweetheart, how would you know that?" Lina hesitated. Fear finally flickered across her face, but it didn't stop her. "My dad designs control systems. He teaches me. Please, you need to tell them not to force the rudder." Another sharp yaw slammed Sarah into a seat. The plane groaned. Somewhere metal screamed under stress. Sarah looked at the girl, 12 years old. braided hair, trembling hands. But her words were precise, too precise to ignore. "I need to get to the cockpit," Sarah said. Lena nodded. "Tell them to check for debris lock and reduce asymmetric thrust. It might stabilize airflow." Sarah stared at her. Then she ran. In the cockpit, alarms overlapped in a terrifying chorus. "Bank angle! Altitude! Rudder limit!" The captain fought the controls with everything he had. Then a knock. The cockpit door opened. "A passenger has information," Sarah said, breathless. "A child." The captain almost laughed. Almost. But then the co-pilot looked up. "What kind of information?" Sarah swallowed. "She says the rudder may be mechanically locked. Forcing it could destroy the tail." The cockpit went silent. The co-pilot slowly turned to the data screen. "That aligns with the telemetry." The captain exhaled sharply. Another violent shake hit the plane. "Bring her," the captain said. Back in the cabin, Lena felt the plane dip again. She tightened her seatbelt and whispered to herself, "Please don't break, please don't break." The cockpit door closed behind Lena with a soft click that felt far too small for the moment. She stood there, 12 years old, sneakers planted on a vibrating floor, surrounded by flashing lights and warning alarms. The captain and co-pilot stared at her, not with disbelief now, but with urgency. "Tell us exactly what you know," the captain said. The plane lurched left again, hard enough to rattle the overhead panels. Lena grabbed the jump seat strap to steady herself. "The yaw pattern is delayed," she said quickly. "If it were hydraulic failure, the rudder would float or move freely. This feels locked, like something's physically stopping it." The co-pilot glanced at the screen. "Rudder deflection stuck at 5 degrees left." Lena nodded. "That's enough to keep forcing the plane sideways. If you fight it directly, stress builds at the base of the vertical stabilizer." The captain's jaw tightened. "And if that snaps, we lose the tail," Lena finished quietly. No one argued. The captain leaned closer. "So what do we do?" Lena took a breath, forcing her shaking hands still. She remembered her father's notebooks, his diagrams, his calm voice. "Don't fight the rudder," she said. "Work around it." The co-pilot raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "Reduce thrust on the left engine only. Let airflow push the tail back towards center. Use ailerons gently to assist, not correct. Slow, gradual inputs." The plane dipped again, alarms screaming. "Radio's still dead," the co-pilot said. "We're on our own." The captain stared at Lena for a long second. Then he nodded. "All right," he said. "We try it." The left engine throttled down. The vibration changed. Not gone, but different. In the cabin, passengers felt it immediately. The violent jerk softened into a long, uneasy sway. People clutched seats, holding their breath. In the cockpit, the yaw angle slowed. "Rate decreasing," the co-pilot said. That's working." Lena leaned closer to the display. "Don't rush it. Airflow needs time." Seconds crawled by. The plane groaned, as if protesting the new balance. Sweat trickled down the captain's neck. Then, "You're stabilizing," the co-pilot whispered. The alarms fell silent one by one. No one spoke. For the first time in 10 minutes, the plane flew straight. In the cabin, confusion replaced panic.
"Are we okay?" someone asked.
A baby stopped crying. A man began to laugh, half hysterical, half relieved. A woman pressed her forehead to the seat in front of her and sobbed. Flight attendant Sarah gripped the galley wall, legs trembling. "We're still alive," she whispered. Back in the cockpit, the captain exhaled a breath he felt like he'd been holding his entire career. "Good work," he said to the co-pilot, to the aircraft, and finally to Lena. But it wasn't over. "The rudder's still jammed," the co-pilot said. "We can't land like this at normal speed." Lena nodded. "You'll need a longer runway, minimal crosswind. Manual unlock during descent." The captain frowned. "Manual unlock?" "There's a secondary release," Lena said. "Rarely used. But if debris is causing the lock, reduced airflow pressure during descent might allow it to disengage." The co-pilot scanned the checklist. His eyes widened. "There is a procedure," he said slowly. "Buried, but it's here." The captain shook his head in disbelief. "A 12-year-old just saved my career." Lena managed a small smile. "My dad would say you just listened." The descent began. The aircraft moved lower, slower. carefully balanced on imperfect control. The captain flew with hands light on the yoke, responding to the plane rather than commanding it. At 15,000 feet, the warning light flickered. Rudder pressure decreasing, the co-pilot said. At 10,000, a dull clunk echoed through the tail. The rudder indicator twitched, then moved. It's unlocking, the co-pilot said, voice rising. Lena held her breath. The indicator centered. The plane flew true again. The captain laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound. We've got full control. Cheers erupted from the cabin as the landing gear lowered. The runway lights appeared through the cockpit window. Brace for landing, Sarah announced, her voice shaking with emotion. Passengers held hands with strangers. Some prayed, some cried, some simply stared forward, silent. The plane touched down hard, but straight. The wheels screamed. The spoilers deployed. The aircraft slowed, then finally stopped. For half a second there was silence. Then the cabin exploded with applause, sobs, laughter, and shouts of relief. Emergency crews surrounded the plane. The cockpit door opened. The captain stood and turned to Lena. You saved 404 lives today, he said, including mine. Lena felt tears sting her eyes. I was just doing what my dad taught me. Outside, as passengers disembarked, word spread quickly. That's the girl! She helped the pilots. She saved us. A reporter knelt in front of Lena, microphone trembling. How did you stay so calm, he asked. Lena thought for a moment. My dad says machines panic when humans do, she said softly. So I didn't. That night, her father wrapped her in a tight embrace, unable to speak. And somewhere in the sky, Flight 718 became a story people would tell for years.